Ladies and gentlemen, Patriots rise up. Our beautiful boy, Donald Trump, has been arrested and arraigned one more time. Lord knows I can't change, and Lord knows he can't change. You already know it, and I already know it. Nothing can take our big, bold, and beautiful Patriot Donald Trump down. Woo! That's right, baby. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 3-time arrest champion. He's not going to prison. I'll tell you what, the real Democratic pedophiles are already in prison, and the Patriots are about to rise up once again. And I'm Hasan Piker, and I'm here to tell you exactly how that's going to happen and how Donald Trump's going to make America great again. That's right. Woo! All right, let's get to what Fox News is saying.
Judges are poisoned. I mean, how can, like, if you're a judge or you're a jury and you've been for 5 years, and I said this on the 5, I think 2 years ago. I said, if everybody's saying that this guy's Hitler, there's got to be something wrong with you if you don't rig the election. There's got to be something wrong with you if you aren't biased. If you're on a jury and Hitler's there, of course, you don't care if he's innocent of this particular thing. That dude's Hitler. You got to get rid of him. And I think that, you know, for 5 years this guy has been Hitler. There's no way.
Dude, what is happening with the captions today?
I think to your other point, you can know that you lost an election but still think it was crooked.
But I think it's interesting that it seems that Democrats are getting more and more concerned about what they've pushed for, which I think is to make Trump the nominee because they think he's going to be the easiest one to beat. Now when they see him surging and him joking on social media about, I just need that 4th indictment, it's going to ensure my reelection, they're getting nervous. In Playbook, I think it was today, there was a
yeah, it's the liberals that are getting nervous. More so, liberals are just fatigued by all of this. And not only that, but also, like, I don't think people care about it as much. I mean, even Trump supporters don't care about it. Like, look at these arraignments, one after the other. Like, there's not that much momentum at all for the same exact reasons I mentioned time and time again.
We're going to see some Democrats losing their minds.
Sure.
We have
Harold votes no.
Just walk outside.
I love America.
Oh, I love that. They're like doing lib watch.
He makes a deal with Smith.
Without jail time?
And without jail. He says, look, I'm going away. I'm moving to Saudi Arabia. I just want him to go away and stop ruining my country.
There are certain prosecutors that would offer him a plea agreement without time if he would agree to never run for public office again anywhere.
Democracy itself is really at issue in this trial. If Trump could...
Look how hard the libs are owned. Is like the only thing they have at this point. Because like, what the fuck are they gonna do? They can't argue on the boundaries of the cases. Like, he's dead to rights in many of them. So
about whether people in this country care about the facts and the law.
It would be, Wolf, the end of our democracy if Donald Trump was able to get back into office.
Jesse Waters, that was just a sampling of the reaction.
To be fair, I don't even think that's like that wrong of a statement to say like it would be the end of our democracy as we know it, because it's like, yeah, for him to go to jail and then win election and then pardon himself would dramatically undermine all of the institutions that have been built to ensure that that doesn't happen. So, I mean, you know, there have been plenty of instances where political leaders have, you know, gone to prison and then came back and were worse than before. And no, I'm not talking about Nelson Mandela. I'm talking about motherfucking Adolf Hitler. You know what I mean?
And then Zuckerberg lands, I think it was $500 million, layers over all of these election volunteers, all over the state worker act. These people were activists that were running this thing. So if someone sends you an affidavit that says there's monkey business in Detroit, the president has every legal right to call the...
I like this idea that like these are legitimate claims, especially because they were brought up to court and investigated numerous times to no avail. And so you can't keep consistently claiming that this happened, there was monkey business, when like you tried it, it failed numerous fucking times. Multiple investigations were conducted.
Why are Republicans still sticking to the person that we can't stand? We hate him so much. Why don't they hate him too? It's because you hate him so much that they love him. Because he scares you because they support him. That's the whole thing. So the more you throw this stuff at him, again, like I said yesterday, it's spinach to Popeye. You know, the more indictments, the impeachments. By the way,
he's not wrong about this.
Weird right now. The first impeachment, the perfect phone call, when it turns out he was dead, right? Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah. Shannon Bream, what is the next step in the legal process? Will his team make a motion to what?
He's not wrong. a big part of why people absolutely love Donald Trump is because Donald Trump gets the libs mad. They get the libs horny and they get the libs mad. So Donald Trump is who he is because of his enemies, right? I mean, I talked about this extensively yesterday with like not enough good characters on the liberal side. Kind of hurts Donald Trump, but overall, this kind of like liberals are coming after me because, you know, they're coming after me because they want to come after you. I'm just in the way. That narrative is absolutely demonstrably successful. We're going to be looking at polls in a little bit because finally it's polling season, my favorite. Him saying that they love Trump because Dems hate him is saying no matter what the argument is, if Dems are in favor of it, Republicans will take the other side automatically. Yes, that is a more honest interpretation of modern American politics than anything else that you can arrive at. But yeah, they're reactionary. This is how it works. But that's basically it. It's all team sports. Yeah, pretty much.
Look, I keep coming back to, and I mentioned this earlier before our special coverage started, and I'll just share a feeling that I had when I was reading the indictment is that I got a real pit in my stomach because you do realize the weight, not just of the indictment, but of now this election and how the election is going to be the jury, right? The American public is the jury on this. I know that isn't...
No, absolutely not. I hope not. The American people are dumb as fuck, Chuck. Shut the fuck up. No, that sounds like a awful interpretation. Oh my God. Most important election of our lifetimes. First of all, I don't agree with that. I don't believe that. I will stand by that statement. I will stand by that sentiment. They say that about every single election. This one doesn't have enough juice to even like push for that narrative, especially because if that was the case, then what the Democratic Party should have done, was to fucking not put up Joe Brandon and actually knowing full well how terrible Joe Brandon was going to look, which is an assessment that I made 4 fucking years ago. Okay. It's not like they did not have the capacity to see that Joe Brandon was going to be like 85,000 years old by the time he gets to his second election. And by the time he gets the re-election, his incumbent advantage was going to be null because of how old he is. They would have propped up another leader in the party to basically swap him out. You can't, on the one hand, say this is the most important election of our lifetimes, and then say that's why we have this husk, this goddamn corpse. Okay? You can't do that. So then someone at a certain point is fucking up. If Kamala Harris is your replacement for Joe Brandon, and even if that's the case, even if you think that she is a good substitute for Joe Brandon, if Kamala Harris is the substitute for Joe Brandon, and on top of that, the placements for Kamala Harris are awful because the White House is sending her on failure missions, okay? Then what are we doing? Why are they purposely sending Kamala Harris out to like dive on grenades? And obviously it's her fault as well because she's like deeply uncharismatic. But like, why are we doing that if she is supposed to be the replacement for Joe Brandon? If this is the most important election of our lifetime.
I understand what she's trying to say, but you know, look, when Donald Trump's involved, everything revolves around him. And I think, you know, let's not pretend this isn't, you know, if she really wants to try to break through, I think you have to accept the premise that this is a referendum on Donald Trump. And you have to go right at it. Unless Donald Trump starts to regularly poll double digits behind Joe.
Dog, that is such a losing battle. Oh my God. It's like they went and they found the one battle that is even worse. Okay? I don't know how well this works. Guys, if you look at polls that are coming out now about the Trump support in the Republican base, okay? It's solid as a motherfucker. As a matter of fact, it's infinitely more solid than the Democratic support is for Joe Biden. Okay? The idea that like we should leave this up to the American public is what Donald Trump should be saying. Why is Chuck Todd saying what Donald Trump should be saying for propaganda purposes? Don't indict me. Let the people indict me. Let the people vote for me. And if I lose, then that means that the people don't want me. I hate that. I hate that that is what Chuck Todd is making as an argument, which is a losing argument. Ay, ay, ay. It's so bad.
With what he kind of wanted to create on healthcare in Massachusetts, looking at entitlement programs. And then even in 2016, this Chuck was kind of...
Guys, 70% of Republicans think that global warming is fake and not a problem at all, okay? Again, another 70% of Republicans think Donald Trump has done nothing wrong at all. You cannot meet that base of support with sanity and reason and logic and say, let's leave it up to those guys. You have an entire 24/7 newscast that is still the most successful news broadcast in the nation that is constantly pumping ridiculous misinformation, brainwashing every single voter-eligible boomer out there. There is no way that we have like an election on, a referendum on this kind of thing, and the results are actually sane, okay? 0% of Trump's core support think he's done anything illegal. 0%. They couldn't find one fucking person in Trump's base of support that thinks he's done anything illegal. That's fucking insane. You can find, you're always in polls, like there's always that like 2%, 3%, like the random guys who are like, yeah, Trump was doing something super illegal, but I still think he should be able to do it. Like you can even find those crazies, dude. You totally missed the point. He's trying to say do not vote for him without actually saying it. Yeah, that's an idiotic point. I didn't miss that point. I'm just calling it stupid. I'm calling that argument a dumb argument to me.
The courtroom, based on the information that we are getting from our team in court. One of the things that we heard from John Lauro, who was representing former President Trump, was the idea that they need more time. He said, we have a massive amount of discovery here to do. He said something like the government has had 3.5 years to conduct this investigation. That's not quite right, but his point is Special Counsel Jack Smith has had his hands on this stuff longer than John Lauro has. And he said, we need time to see what we got, get our arms around it, essentially. I'm paraphrasing here. What does that mean for how quickly we might see a trial, the possibility that a trial could extend beyond the November 2024 election? What's your sense?
You can save the tape on this one. The defense is not going to get 3.5 years in order to prepare the defense. That is not happening. But the defense...
Yeah, great take by Fango Lives, okay? There's a reason why juries get sequestered, okay? Because they do not want any kind of tampering. It's sequestered because they do not want outside influences dictating the outcome of a fucking result, a court case. It's nuts.
Both defense and prosecution are building the case at the same time. And in those cases, sometimes the government or the prosecutor will let the case languish. Sometimes they have too many cases. They're not organized. And then speedy trial comes into play because you either have to put up or shut up, and the defendant can get the case dismissed. In this case, the government's already been investigating this case for some time.
For the record, you said already happens, but okay. I know, but the goal is to avoid that, okay? The goal is to, try to limit that as best as possible. So the very reason why that exists implies that you can't leave it up to a goddamn referendum with Fox News playing on one side.
Mr. Trump, for 27 minutes, was as ordinary a citizen as he could possibly be. He was a defendant in a criminal case. He stood like everyone else when the judge walked in. He sat when the judge sat. He was placed under oath. He answered questions with a no, Your Honor, or a yes, Your Honor. And when the judge departed, he stood again. I think that defendants in criminal cases should be treated with respect, and they should be treated alike. And anything that makes this more of a spectacle.
Biden's in a really bad position because all of the maybe marginal benefits that have occurred as far as recovery, economic relief, that is again, very marginal and will always take time for people to truly experience it and recognize the changes. All of that is never seen as a product of Biden's leadership because of how old he is. And every single negative aspect is attributed to him being old and mismanaging the Democratic Party and the presidency, the office of the presidency from the jump. So no matter what happens, he's in a lose-lose situation. There's no other way that I can make sense of the polls, okay? Obviously, shit is always bad, okay? But when you look at polls, you're supposed to look at polls, for example, during COVID in 2020. And if you look at the polls during COVID in 2020 under Trump's presidency, okay, and people are saying that the situation at hand, or 2019, that the situation at hand was better. The outcome of the economy was seen by the people as better than the situation now. Well, that's objectively untrue. There's a mismatch of the actual reality of the circumstances at hand and the way people are perceiving it. And I think that the wires are being crossed due to optics, due to the fact that Joe Brandon is very old and is seen as like either a corporate puppet, a lifeless husk that is incompetent, and that's why you feel terrible about your current economic situation, or even if there are positives, even if there are things that are turning for the better, like the downswing of inflation, even though it's not completely, you're actually brain dead after that take. W. Trump, how? I think they're over-polling Republicans to make up for past biases.
Federal case against
I'll talk about
President
Biden's
Trump.
fumbles
It is
in a second.
striking image that illustrates, I think, the sort of legal web that the former president faces.
In a work of our NBC political unit, they tracked over $20 million from a PAC associated with Trump that's been used to pay attorneys. And so we're still digging through that money to figure out which attorney is getting what and then who are they paying for the defense for. But I think that image that
$40 million have been spent on legal defense funds for Donald Trump thus far from PACs, which is insane. I mean, like, every dollar that you're giving to any kind of like Trump candidacy PAC is directly going to him and his numerous legal troubles at this point. No, it's 40. I'm pretty sure it's 40. It's not fucking, it's not 20. That's what I saw. Maybe I'm wrong. It might even be more than that. But like all your donos are going to this man's individual private defense fund at this point. But these guys deserve it. They're so fucking stupid. Republicans are so dumb. It was 20 million last year. Yeah, it's 40 now.
Trump should be backed by the rest of the party in the face of these legal challenges. You are posted up, of course, in Bedminster, New Jersey, as the former president is on.
Infrastructure, chips, first gun bill in 30 years, 2 reconciliation bills when Obama did none, including Inflation Reduction Act. So yeah, Biden has been more effective than every president in a generation, working with more obstructionist Republicans. Yeah. I love spelling out this kind of shit with the hidden implication that ultimately they were almost every single thing that you mentioned, especially like the most laughable one being the gun bill. Bringing up the gun bill alongside the IRA basically gives the game away, okay? One is a neutered version of something that was promised that was supposed to be much more and a necessity, but yet it's still positive. The gun bill, on the other hand, is nothing. So the idea that you brought that up alongside one another implies that you are desperate to make Biden look good, and those measures are not going to they're not going to meet the muster. They're not enough for people to go, oh, wow, that's great. Getting something done in gridlock Congress is only a positive if you don't think of what something is, if you don't think about the outcomes, and if you don't think about what was originally promised, and last but not least, if you don't think about like what the impact of said bills are going to be, and you will always be led astray. That's why you look at polls, because you're an MSNBC watcher, a New York Times reader, looking at the polls going, what the fuck's going on? Like, I don't understand. Why won't people appreciate Biden for all the incredible things that he's done? Why won't people appreciate Biden? It's like, yeah, well, because even if you are a watcher of politics, a diligent watcher of politics, you should recognize that it's not ever going to be, like, your performance should never be measured by how deceptive your enemies were in Congress and how much you had to concede to them. That is a mark off, okay, from your accomplishments. Republicans do not measure their electoral successes or their legislative agenda successes on how much the Democrats fucking combated it. They don't give a shit. They sidestep Congress when they can. Anyway, ultimately, one thing that he could do to like legitimately change this around, especially in demographics that he desperately needs to win over, is the student loan debt relief. Just say, fuck it. I got a big ass dick. I don't give a fuck, Jack. Especially because he's losing younger black and brown populations. Some of the black and brown voters are now also not only being hemorrhaged away from the political process entirely, but also going to the fucking Republican Party, which is insane. I don't blame Biden, but Trump isn't younger either. He's the same age as Biden when he became president. They got just 3 years difference, so the rep narrative about old age doesn't really work, but Dems are too doo-doo to attack back. Well, also because Donald Trump, for all of his faults and failures, still does come across as more energetic and more telegenic than Brandon. Brandon is a great retail politician, and he was for most of his career. That much is kind of gone now at this point. He's basically a husk, a lifeless husk. Whereas Trump on the other hand, still can coherently piece. Like, look at this. He's not any different. He hasn't lost a single fucking step from the past election. He hasn't lost a single step. Biden, on the other hand, looks decrepit.
Very sad day for America. And it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much.
Do you want these trials to happen before the 2024 election?
So there we are. Donald Trump is heading back to Bedminster on his plane, and he said that it was a sad day for America. He then said it was sad to see the filth and decay, as he put it, in Washington. Has to be said, not a city he's ever been that fond of. He famously called it the swamp and said he would drain it.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like Trump has never said anything positive about D.C. He's like, I used to love D.C., but it sucks now. Sad.
He then went on to say that it is nothing short of political persecution of the person leading the Republican primary. So a very short speech from Donald Trump, very brief and no questions, and he will now be heading off back to, we think, Bedminster in New Jersey, his golf club there, with his legal team, who will be all on that plane.
Yeah, they've never led him astray.
And his hearing
Good to get some
done.
FaceTime with the boys.
Not guilty. James Matthews is still at the courthouse. And James, very brief words from Donald Trump, but typically defiant.
Still wild. Let's hear from a brilliant, bold, beautiful patriot about this indictment.
Yeah. And the people that love Trump, they feel like this is a witch hunt. And they feel like all the things he's getting indicted for are bullshit anyway. Not only does it not work, but it kind of hardens their position that he's being targeted, and that these are like the actions of a banana republic. You take your political rival and you arrest him, and specifically you charge him with things that you're fucking guilty of, like the documents, like the classified documents. Biden's guilty of the exact same issue.
You gotta respect the level of deceptiveness that's been used. I mean, look at what Hillary did, going and saying, hey, it's Russia, but it was really, what she was doing. And now they're using a similar play as well. Yeah.
And the people that love Trump, they feel like this is a witch hunt.
I wish Hillary Clinton went to jail for so many reasons. One, because it would have been fucking dope. Two, because maybe it would shut these fucking idiots up for like 3 seconds. But like probably not.